Something has changed inside Claude, and you probably won't notice it. Anthropic has announced that Claude-generated text can now carry an invisible, machine-readable watermark. You can't see it while reading, but the idea is that a machine could eventually detect that Claude was involved. So if you use Claude for writing, coding, or content creation, what does this actually mean? And can someone really tell that you used AI? Let's break down what Anthropic announced, what the watermark can and can't do, and what you should know. Let's start with what actually happened. Anthropic announced that generated text from supported Claude models will carry an imperceptible watermark, while supported generated files can include digitally signed provenance information. This isn't a rumor or a leak. It's an official change Anthropic has announced. The important detail is that this is being introduced as part of the company's response to new AI transparency requirements in Europe. Here's where the headlines can get confusing. Anthropic says Claude models launched on or after August 2, 2026 will support this marking from launch. The company is also working to add marking support to models released before that date. So don't interpret this as every piece of Claude text from the past suddenly becoming watermarked. It's a rollout, and support depends on the model and the type of content being generated. So what does an invisible watermark actually mean? You won't see a logo, a symbol, or a strange piece of text. Anthropic says the watermark is woven directly into the generated text while keeping the meaning, quality, and readability unchanged. The exact technical details haven't been fully published yet. Anthropic says more information about its detection system and technical implementation will be shared in upcoming documentation. Here's the interesting part. Because Anthropic says the watermark is part of the text itself, it can travel with the text when you copy and paste it somewhere else. It may also survive some editing. That's very different from a normal piece of metadata attached to a file. But don't misunderstand this as an unbreakable fingerprint. Anthropic itself says these marking systems have limitations, and the absence of a detectable mark doesn't prove that humans wrote the content. There's another part of the announcement that works differently. For supported files, including certain images, Anthropic says it will use C2PA provenance metadata. Think of this as a digitally signed record attached to the file that can provide information about its origin. So there are two approaches here. Text gets an imperceptible watermark, while supported files can carry provenance metadata. So why is Anthropic doing this now? The main reason is transparency around AI-generated content. New requirements under the European Union's AI Act are pushing providers toward clearer identification of AI-generated content. Anthropic says its marking approach is being applied globally to supported Claude models, rather than limiting it only to users in Europe. That means the impact can extend far beyond the EU. Now, let's talk about the question a lot of people will immediately ask. What does this mean for students? If you use a supported Claude model to generate an essay and submit that text without meaningful changes, the content may carry a Claude mark. But that does not mean your teacher can automatically paste it into a website tomorrow and get a perfect answer saying, "Claude wrote this." Detection tools still need to exist and be able to recognize the mark. The same applies to writers and creators. If Claude helps you draft an article, script, email, or other content, the generated text may carry the mark when the relevant model supports it. But AI assistance isn't the same thing as completely AI-written content. Someone might use Claude to brainstorm ideas, rewrite a sentence, fix grammar, or organize their own material. A detected mark would indicate that Claude was involved, not automatically tell you exactly how much work the human contributed. And this is probably the most important part of the entire story. A watermark is not a magic AI detector. Anthropic says a detected mark is a signal, not conclusive proof of the entire content's origin. Editing, transformation, or other processing can affect whether a mark remains detectable. And if no mark is detected, that still doesn't prove the content was written entirely by a human. So don't confuse watermarking with a perfect lie detector. Anthropic also isn't alone in pursuing AI content provenance. Google has its own Synth ID technology, and C2PA has become an important standard for establishing the provenance of digital content. The broader industry is moving towards systems that can provide signals about whether content was generated or processed by AI. Claude's announcement is therefore part of a much bigger shift, rather than an isolated feature. So what should you actually do? If you're using Claude normally for research, brainstorming, coding, writing assistance, or productivity, there's no reason to panic. But if you're publishing AI-generated content in situations where human authorship matters, you should understand that provenance and disclosure are becoming more important. The safest approach is simple. Know when you're using AI, understand the rules that apply to your work, and don't assume that AI-generated content is completely anonymous. So here's the simple version. Claude is introducing invisible marking for supported AI-generated text, along with provenance metadata for supported files. It can survive copy and paste in some editing, but it's not a perfect detector, and the absence of a mark doesn't prove something was written by a human. This is less about catching everyone who uses AI, and more about making AI-generated content easier to identify. If you found this breakdown useful, subscribe to TamcastHub for more AI updates explained without the hype.